Upgot and I help farmers get planning permission on their farms. And welcome back to the Farmers Planning Podcast. Today, I've got my wife, Emily. She's helping me on the podcast and she's going to be interviewed on a few topics, namely farming, families and children, and social media in the business. So we just wanted to talk about a few things that are probably relatable to a lot of listeners. And one of those is raising children on a farm today in 2026 compared to when we were younger in the 1980s. So what do you think's changed on farms for children that are being reared, as so to say?
I mean, I was a 1990s baby.
1987.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't really remember when I was 3. I think, unfortunately, as with everything, a lot more legislation has come in the latter years. So whereas we perhaps were more free when we were children, now, children can't do as much as they perhaps did when we were growing up.
What, like sitting in tractor cabs and stuff like that? We're now, children can't go on the tractors like we used to. I think our parents were probably a bit more free with that, weren't they?
Yes, I mean, I remember one of my dad's tractors didn't even have a seatbelt on the passenger seat, and it didn't really seem to be a problem. I don't know whether we used to go on the road, I can't remember that, but we definitely used to be around for corn carting and things, and it was quite fun. My sister and I used to take it in turns to sit there, whereas now, like you say, the children aren't really allowed anywhere near the tractors. They have become a bit more of a novelty.
Do you think that farming was a bit more relaxed in that era? As in, do you think if you look at your dad when he was harvesting compared to a dad that's combining today, do you think it was more of like a sort of, carefree
Yeah,
harvesting?
100%. I don't know whether it's because I've got rose-tinted glasses slightly, because
You're a child,
I was still
with
a
no
child.
responsibilities.
But I remember harvest teas, harvest suppers being a big thing. Every day we used to either have, my mum used to make picnics or fish and chips or proper food. Used to always have it. My dad always used to have a drink, and it was a big social occasion for our family with Grandad and whoever was working on the farm. And although there was a pressure and it was always the same farmers that started first in Essex and everyone knew who it was going to be, I think nowadays people are so paranoid, because of everything and because everyone communicates slightly differently. If they're not combining and harvesting when everyone else is, the pressure that farmer must feel, I think, is far greater maybe than it used to be in days gone by, when people just used to be a bit more like, oh, I'll run a bit later tonight, or, oh, well, take us another couple of days.
Yes, yeah, everything didn't have to be done yesterday, did it? Because we've got a friend at the moment, he's away on holiday and he's getting a lot of stick at the moment for being away whilst everyone else is combining. And you can tell that he's fretting, going, oh, I should be there. But it's so early, harvest has moved
It's
a month
early.
earlier.
It's the 1st of July today. Harvesting and combining has got earlier and earlier rather throughout the years. When can you book a summer holiday if you've got a family?
And do you think that's because, in terms of what we were talking about with children growing up on farms and families farming the land, does that come back to like the whole family farm thing, that the family farms have gone that were probably there in the 90s? When you think about it, they were smaller farms, more of a family feel, and it's become more corporate agribusinesses, much bigger scale, and the pressure's on because the margins are so tight. So is that why people, there's this sort of constant pressure?
Yeah, quite possibly. I think in an ideal world, when we were growing up, there was a talk and everyone kind of assumed, I suppose, in the family farm that someone in the family would take over, whereas now that's not necessarily a possibility. Lots of the big farms have absorbed all the smaller farms, or they're being contracted out due to costs. So there's not all the little family farms necessarily that there were when we were growing up.
Because I would say in our parents' generation, it was more normal for, there to be some sort of succession plan, where the next generation would move into the farm and take over the farm, which actually creates a huge amount of pressure, whether they wanted to or not. They might not have been very good business people. They might not have wanted the pressure of running a business. They might have just wanted to go and get a job, or they might have had aspirations to go and do something else. But generally, a lot of them went back into the farms. Whereas nowadays, that's not quite the case. Do you agree or not?
I would agree, but I also think that, as you and I know firsthand, most farms nowadays can't make enough money purely based on the farming, so you have to diversify. So I think the pressure for the current farmer, if you like, is trying to work out monetary wise, can the next generation actually come on the farm and make a money for both them, and their parents who might be both relying on an income.
Yeah, so they've got to come onto it with a project, because I think what you're saying is that a lot of people that are running the businesses already, they're not farming. So they've had to diversify their income into glamping pods, office lets, or a wedding venue or something like that. So they're already not farming. So when the next generation comes, it's more of a diversified business. And that's what farms have been encouraged to do in the UK, diversify and push away from the food production and go more into the diversification of your assets.
Agreed. I think there are very few farms in the whole of the UK that are purely farms now.
Yeah.
Lots of them have lettings, buildings, other diversification, pick your owns, or like you say, glamping pods. There's very few that are just purely, combining crops.
Yeah. So that brings me on to when we're talking about the pressure and everything having to be done quickly, so harvest, a lot of peer pressure, as well as market pressures. Social media is a big thing in farming and for our businesses in farming and on planning and things like that. How do you think that's had an influence on that sort of pressure on farmers, and seeing that someone, is combining spring barley somewhere or winter wheat and yours isn't even ripe and yours looks dead, but their Instagram photo shows it perfect?
I think social media has a lot to answer for nowadays. There's lots of good things, and we have benefited from some of the good things in that, look at your own social media channel. It's amazing. It's doing really well. However, on the flip side of that, we have become an instantaneous society, I think, a bit due to, the Amazon, Next Directory. Everyone expects everything yesterday and instantly. So, for example, on social media, people send an email and they're expecting a reply instantly. If they then haven't had a reply by the next morning, they're chasing you already. Well,
I sent you a Facebook message, I sent you a WhatsApp, I've left you a voicemail, and I've sent you an email and nobody's responded. That was 11 o'clock last night.
And it's now 9 o'clock and you're already being chased. And
there's half a dozen people chasing you for it.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of the farming comparison, it's Instagram versus reality. I think it's the same on everything. People only put online what they want people to see online. So if they've got a great field of, barley, they're going to show that bit. They're not going to show the bit that's been eaten by the, by the crows.
Or the bit their dad sprayed off by accident.
Exactly. So I do think the pressure must be, horrendous, really. And even with not just actually what they've done, but things on people's farms. So nowadays, people show off what they've got on their farm. They might actually only be, having a test drive of a new tractor. However, they can showcase it on social media for, 10 reels. It looks like they've bought a £100,000 tractor. In reality, they haven't. But because you're only seeing that snapshot shot for such a short period of time, you've instantly made your mind up, well, they must be doing really well. They've got that new tractor, or they're always buying new machinery, which might not always be the case. So
Doesn't
I think
mean they've got the strongest balance sheet, does
exactly.
it?
You have to take social media with a pinch of salt, I think.
Yeah. So that brought us on to something else that we thought we could discuss in terms of everybody sort of wanting something for nothing. There's a bit of a society which I think's come through this sort of social media reactiveness of, people wanting free advice and quick advice for free. And I just find it remarkable, because you wouldn't go to a solicitor in the day and say, I want my house conveyed for free. So why should we as a planning business give money away for free? Sorry, advice away for free?
Yeah, there is, I'm sure we could spend pretty much all day on the phone to people that ring up just giving free advice away without doing any of our own work.
But there's an expectation from people that you're not a business, that you're a helpline, and that they're entitled to receive help. So it's this sort of sense of entitlement as well, isn't it? Of, well, I've got a problem, so you should help me, and mine's the most important, which is absolutely fine, and we're happy to help. But you've got to instruct us before we can help. And they kind of miss that point, don't they?
I think, well, like you've just said, I think people do expect everything for nothing nowadays, and they expect it done yesterday. people who have not even clients of ours yet will sometimes ring 3 times in one day just to keep asking the same question when we've actually already gone back to them and say, we're happy to help you on this, we're the experts, we've got some advice. However, you do need to instruct us and then we can act for you.
And as a planning business the other day, we took a call from someone who wanted a free blog checklist that they could submit the application themselves and not use our services.
I mean, and like you said, it's bizarre because the bigger the company is, the more that people almost expect that they have to pay. So, for example, you wouldn't go into Sainsbury's and try and haggle for a bag of carrots and say, well, I've only got 10 pence. Can I pay you 10 pence? Yeah. Whereas if you get people who go into a farm shop, they're much more likely to haggle. Yeah. And I think people forget that actually small businesses and business owners are the ones that really are trying to make their money, whereas the big corporations are actually the ones that don't necessarily need the money as much necessarily as the smaller businesses. But there's this weird perception that a small business can give you stuff for free, whereas a bigger one can't.
Yeah,
it's bizarre. I'm not sure where it's really come from.
Yeah. So just as a parting point, what do you feel most proud of having children growing up in a rural environment?
I think I feel incredibly lucky that our children do have the childhood they have, because you and I both grew up on farms and it was a childhood that I have treasured memories of. So I'm embracing the fact that they are free. They can, run around and do what they want in terms of the large landscape. I mean, last week it was the Essex Agricultural Food and Farming Day, where all the children, 5,000 children are taken to Writtle College and shown around all the different farming stalls. So there's crops, there's food, and there is livestock, all the different agricultural elements. And it's amazing, having been involved with that, what some of the children are unaware of. And I feel lucky that our children are totally aware of it. For example, I remember a couple of years ago, there were milkshakes there, and some of the children did not realise how milkshakes became milkshakes. And even the vegetables, some of the vegetables, the simple game of, what's this? They don't even know simple vegetables. Yeah. And I do think that is
because everything's
scary.
In a packet, yeah.
Everything's in a packet. Everything comes from, the supermarket. I remember for the cow one, someone did say, where does your milk come from? Yeah. Expecting obviously everyone to say cow. I mean, there was a cow there, and people were still saying, Sainsbury's. Yeah. And I actually don't think the children have put two and two together to realise where food comes from, which is alarming.
And I think a little bit of discipline for the children as well, sort of, when they grow up in a rural environment and they've got, like ours go and look at the sheep before school and stuff like that, and they check them, and there's a little bit of responsibility there, and they then have a bit of ownership on something. They're not just sat on a screen or watching something. I mean, we are guilty of that as well.
Agreed. But they also, our children know the seasons a bit more, I think, than other children possibly. So they know, it's really rainy at the moment because this happens on the farm, or this floods. And even though we don't actually harvest anything ourselves, but obviously some of the land around us does get, combined, it's still a really exciting day. And the children know that, when opposite gets combined and foraged, it's really exciting and the children love it. And I want them to love it rather than just think, oh, look, it's being done today, or oh, it's gone. I like them to know the process because they know that farming is in our blood and it's in theirs as well.
Yeah. But I think from when you talk about it being in farming blood, you're finding that that's fizzling out, because I just think the next generation just won't be going into farming. A lot of it's going to be a lot more technical. It's going to be from iPads, and it's going to be a very different farming, automated tractors and things like that, than what we grew up with or ever knew. As our ancestors, I suppose, grandparents getting from the horse to the tractor. It's moving all the time with technology, and they'll know it in a very different, food production will be a very different world for them to what we've known.
Yes, of course. I think things change all the time. Probably, like you said, if my granddad was sat here, he'd be talking about farming with his grandpa, years and years ago. I think that's just generally life. Things change all the time. You can't guess what farming's going to be like in the next 20 years. It probably will look very different.
Flying drones and running iPads, basically. Yeah.
Exactly. You might be able to actually almost drive a tractor from the office, self-drive tractor. I don't know, but
you will,
things like that. But I still think it's nice that our children have got that chance to experience the farm now as they are.
Cool. Thank you.